Good evening and warm welcome to Power News, your window to the power sector. I'm Juhi Rajput. First of all, let me bring you the quick updates from power sector. The centre is likely to be lenient towards power generation companies that have made substantial investments in their end-use projects but have lost allocation of captive coal blocks without any major fault of the promoters. These projects that could run into a capacity of close to 10,000 megawatt may be given long-term coal linkage from Coal India, subject to the availability of the fuel. If implemented, the plan would benefit companies such as Adani Essar, Tata Power, Hindalco, DVC, Gujarat State Electricity, Mahagenco, Sterlite and GMR Energy. Finding inadequacies in rural electrification program implementation, CAG has said that the delay in awarding projects resulted in at least Rs 696 crore cost escalation. The Controller and Auditor General of India has also found that nearly Rs 158 crore fund meant for Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana was diverted, while 29 projects worth Rs 548 crore were awarded to ineligible contractors. The observations are part of the performance audit report on Rajiv Gandhi Gramin Vidyutikaran Yojana tabled in Parliament. According to the report, inadequacies in identification and estimation of unelectrified villages and BPL beneficiaries at the planning stage had the impact of variations in cost estimates to the extent of Rs 2,262 crore. The Coal Ministry on Wednesday switched to the auction route for the allocation of coal mines, ending a long-standing regime of nominations. The ministry has invited bids for the allocation of 3 explored blocks, Jhirki and Jhirki West of East Bokaro Coalfield, Andal Babui Sol of Raniganj Coalfield and Toki Sood 2nd of South Karanpura Coalfields. These blocks are estimated to have combined reserves of 500 million tons. Only end users, industries in steel blast furnace, sponge iron and cement can participate in the bidding. The policy for auction of captive coal blocks to private players for end use was approved by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs in September 2013. Aam Aadmi Party has accused power distribution companies in Mumbai, Reliance Infrastructure and Tata Power of making a wrongful gain of Rs 434 crore in 3 years ended March 2013 by overstating taxes while calculating cost, a charge strongly denied by the companies. AAP alleged that Maharashtra lost Rs 22,000 crore in 3 years due to corruption and inefficiency in the state government and power firms. AAP alleged that power firms pay 18% minimum alternate tax, but they tell the regulator the rate is 33%, helping each DISCOM gain about Rs 216 crore. The Delhi government's decision to audit the books of power distribution companies has drawn flack from several private DISCOMs, with some even saying the move will impact investment in the infrastructure sector, especially in power distribution. After asking power distribution companies of Delhi to reduce tariffs, the state government has ordered an audit of the accounts of the DISCOMs by the Controller and Auditor General of India. DISCOM says that the objective behind cutting tariffs is no doubt a good move, but the way it was handled is not what industrialists expect.
If there is a mistake in accounting, because in Delhi that discussion has started, that is there a discrepancy in accounting? Is there something which is being hidden or being not sort of exposed? That's a fair point. Let it be audited. Who audits it? I understand that the regulatory process is so transparent that it is the regulator's responsibility itself to get the accounts questioned. And they do that. They appoint consultants, they appoint auditors, or they can appoint auditors to question any figure. The process of tariff fixation today has changed from government desk to a transparent process which goes through a sort of public hearing. You have open house discussion. There are NGOs who can question. There are others who can question. There are lawyers on the side of NGOs who can question anything that is being claimed by way of expenditure or by way of purchase cost of power. And that process enables us to get them questioned and get them audited. And if further audit is needed, fine. And if there is some discrepancy and some deliberate attempt to misguide, they need to be corrected. Nobody can side with that.
DISCOM claims that cost could decline if input prices reduce. The government should have had discussions with DISCOM to see how costs could be reduced. According to Discoms, power generation costs have risen mostly due to higher prices for coal, the fuel generally used by thermal power plants in the country. Coal companies, despite inefficiencies and fall in production growth, have been allowed to make large profits, but power discom companies are being asked to reduce tariffs. Tariffs could have been reduced if coal prices fall.
It costs to produce power, it costs to buy coal, it costs to buy imported coal at that, it costs to get the railway freight, railway movement and get coal, it costs to maintain, it costs to modernize, it costs to serve the consumers in a proper manner, and if these costs are not recovered, then you will again get back, for example in Delhi, to the days which we used to face 10-15 years ago of several hours of load settings, because financially the Delhi DESU those days and the new incarnation, the Delhi Vidyut Board, used to have the same problem. I mean, we can't blame those employees, but because they had no money to do all this, and if they have no money to do all this, they can ill afford to do a proper service to the consumers.
Power Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia, however, saw no problem in a CAG audit of private discoms. On the other hand, Mr. Scindia says that if one has done nothing wrong, there is no need to hide anything, and one should be open for inquiry and the right or wrong will come out. Here we'll take a short break, but there is a lot more on the other side. Stay tuned.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
From manufacturing of energy cables to EHV installations to renewable energy solutions to retail energy products, our technology energizes lives. Ravin, energizing lives.
मैं नहीं सोऊंगा, मेरे बेड के नीचे मॉन्स्टर है।
रोहन, मॉन्स्टर्स रियल नहीं होते।
होते हैं मॉम, वो रात को मुझे हु हु करके डराता है।
अच्छा, अगर डर लगे तो लाइट ऑन कर देना।
अंधेरे में स्विच कैसे ढूंढूं? अगर मॉन्स्टर ने मेरा हाथ खा लिया तो?
अभी सो जाओ, कल देखते हैं।
Switch on, the monster gone. L&T switches, easy to locate in the dark. The only switch with a 12-year warranty.
Power Grid Corporation of India, the central transmission utility, world-class integrated global transmission company with dominant leadership in emerging power market, ensuring reliability, safety and economy. Power Grid, building a smarter grid.
Welcome back. The Central Power Regulator's order providing relief for Tata Power's Mundra project will result in retail tariffs for the 5 beneficiary states moving up by 3 to 10 paise per unit. Central Electricity Regulatory Commission allowed higher tariff as well as a compensation of Rs 329.45 crore for the private utilities 4,000 megawatt project in Gujarat operated by its unit Coastal Gujarat Power Limited. Describing the CERC ruling on Mundra project as partial relief, Tata Power has said the tariff of electricity generated from the plant would go up to Rs 2.90 per unit, which still remains very competitive. Electricity from Mundra project is supplied to Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab.
And these two projects have been affected by a set of extraordinary circumstances because of the change in regulations in Indonesia, which affected the coal price. They had assumed a certain coal price, and on that basis they had quoted tariffs for these two projects. And the change in Indonesian regulations meant an increase in prices, which was making it difficult for the two developers to continue to generate electricity and supply. So, given the circumstances, the CERC had gone into the entire case. They had held discussions, they had held hearing with the petitioner, which is the two companies, and then also the procurers, and have come to the conclusion. So from the point of view of the sector, I would think that this is a very positive decision.
The power purchase agreement with distribution companies from these states is for selling electricity at a price of Rs 2.26 per unit. The regulator's move is aimed at compensating the losses suffered by the Mundra plant due to rise in the price of Indonesian coal that is used to fire it. CERC order came on Tata Power plea seeking relief due to rise in price of Indonesian coal which is used to fire the plant.
These two very big projects, particularly the UMPP, getting affected by the coal change in regulations in Indonesia, and then the competitive bid-based project running into difficulties, was being watched by the entire sector, all the investors and developers and so on. Now that a mechanism has been found to provide some relief to these two projects, I am sure the investors and the developers will be looking at the sector positively.
State utilities are upset with recent regulatory orders in favor of Adani Power and Tata Power. They claim that these companies made predatory bids and secured projects. Bidders who were reasonable and did not bid fixed tariffs had to lose out. And now the rules are being changed. This makes a complete mockery of the bidding process. CERC's order may cost close to Rs 2,400 crore per annum to the utilities of 5 states that are buying power from the plants that will be able to charge higher tariffs, besides compensating Rs 329 crore to Tata Power and Rs 829 crore to Adani Power for the past losses. The regulator has granted higher tariffs to the private power producers for costly coal, though they insist that it would only partly compensate them. Experts say the regulator has been reasonable and granted minimal relief along with sharing of profits from mining operations to minimize the increase in tariffs. But government companies and state electricity boards that will pay a higher bill do not accept this.
If the power tariff on account of these two projects is going to go up by a few paise, we should also look at the other side, where if these two projects were not to supply electricity, then the procurers would be required to contract power afresh through fresh negotiations, bidding and so on, where the tariffs might be even higher. So one has to see it also from that point of view. And the other point that one would look at is that if these projects were not going to supply electricity to the procurers concerned, then to that extent the consumers would lose the supply of electricity for a period of time before the procurers put in motion steps to contract fresh supply of electricity. So I think these two things also will have to be kept in mind when we look at the CERC order.
It is a trend-setting order as it opens the door for projects facing a similar predicament. The move was met with a predictable howl of protest from a section of commentators who argued that this was an unwarranted bailout to these two power companies.
The question of people bidding and losing out and somebody winning the bid and subsequently being provided some kind of adjustment in terms of tariff, that question is there. But in the process of the hearings that CERC had, the procurers were also invited, several state governments were there, and they agreed with the approach that is being taken by CERC in principle. So that means that the procuring states also realized that there was an issue, there were certain extraordinary circumstances, and a way had to be found to go forward with the continued operation of these two projects, which have been set up at huge costs, and then the electricity tariffs are also quite reasonable.
This is actually a significant choice, albeit unpopular with consumers and something that regulators have been making of late. Of course, care has to be taken that this be treated as a special circumstance and bogus claims not entertained.
So if you really see this plant, the bidding was in 2006 somewhere. So prices have gone up. In case 1, they have already allowed the pass-through. So it has come through CERC. So if any party is aggrieved today, they can approach the respective commissions and they'll take a call on it. No decision of court is ipso facto applicable to all the plants, because each plant has a peculiar circumstances, different date of bidding, different coal arrangements. So it will depend on case to case and case specific decisions, but it sets a really good precedent that the fuel price risk cannot be taken by developer and it needs to be passed through.
CERC would not have been faulted if it had gone the other way and disallowed any increase in tariffs. But what surely had transpired is that the private companies would have put the brakes on the project and taken legal recourse. Inevitably, as we have seen in numerous instances, the case would have been dragged on for years, clearing the various judicial hoops. In the resulting lockdown, not only would the country have been denied the desired addition to its already woefully short power capacity, it could also jeopardize the loans owed to banks and other financial institutions. It's time for another short break. Keep watching Power News.
Indian Energy Exchange, India's premier power trading platform.
Jal, jal, jal.
जल से जल तक, मेगावाटर से मेगावाट्स तक, SJVN Limited.
Power Finance Corporation, the most preferred financial institution, providing affordable and competitive products and services with efficient and internationally integrated sourcing. PFC, partnering the reforms in the Indian power sector.
Welcome back. You're watching Power News. The country's solar power capacity is likely to go up by 1,000 megawatt in 2014, almost same as last year. Solar installations in India total 1,004 megawatt in 2013 compared with 986 megawatt the year before. There is no likelihood of Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission projects coming up until mid-2015. Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission was launched in 2010 by the government to promote renewable energy generation and thereby address India's energy security challenges. Most projects have stalled and state policies are all over the map. Besides, India is now in a trade dispute with the US in the World Trade Organization over domestic content requirement in the country's solar program.
As per the GNSM, we have targets of adding around 20,000 megawatt by 2022. And as per the solar purchase obligation targets under National Tariff Policy, we need to add around 33,000 megawatt by 2022. So plans are to add 2,000 to 3,000 megawatt per annum, whereas in actual, we are adding only 800 to 900 megawatts. So that progress is not that impressive.
In addition to economic viability and project margin woes, state policies are also a concern for solar power companies. There is no real renewable purchase obligation in place, which would have made it mandatory for some entities to buy electricity generated by specified green sources. The general elections too are likely to impact the solar project installations.
For solar, of course, the ministry has already announced Jawaharlal Nehru Mission, and this has propelled states to come out with their targets. Already Tamil Nadu has announced a target of 3,000 megawatt, UP has announced for 1,000 megawatt of target, Punjab has come out with 550 megawatt. I think these state targets will take us that far. However, we are still awaiting target announcement, policy announcement from West Bengal and few other states. So if that happens, although it is a huge target of 10,000 megawatt for solar, that will be achieved.
The United States Trade Representative has said that it would take India to the World Trade Organization's dispute resolution mechanism over the localization thrust in India's solar power policies, as it could put American equipment makers at an unfair disadvantage. Bidding for the Phase 2 of Jawaharlal Nehru Solar Mission was launched last year. As many as 68 Indian and foreign companies competing for 122 projects. Many projects went to US companies.
See, all countries want to promote manufacturing base in their country. US is promoting it through low cost funds from US Exim Banks, and large number of thin film have been exported to India in phase 1. Similarly, China wants to increase its manufacturing base and they are promoting manufacturing. In India, we have not done anything like that. We have only come out with a domestic content requirement for 375 megawatt out of 750 megawatt. Such a content requirement is not there in the states. So I don't think it should call for a trade dispute with US for such a small quantity.
A clutch of US companies including Azure Power and First Solar were among the bidders under India's solar mission. Under the mission's ongoing phase 2, those who ask for the lowest amount as capital grant or viability gap funding win the bid. In February 2013, the US had challenged the bidding for first phase of solar mission, citing enforcement of stringent localization norms.
I would say that US reaction before WTO on imposing domestic content requirement within India is quite inappropriate, because WTO allows reservation of quota for domestic industry if it's government procurement. When under JNSM, Solar Energy Corporation of India calls the bid, primarily they are buying the electricity, solar electricity, for selling it to the distribution companies. So it is the distribution companies, which are the government entity mostly, who are buying the solar electricity for onward distribution. So the power purchase agreement in effect is with distribution companies. So it is in the category of government procurement. Under government procurement, there should not be any dispute as far as US is concerned. We are completely within the paradigm of the WTO laws, and there's nothing wrong being done here.
According to the USTR statement, Indian solar program's domestic content requirement discriminate against US solar cells and modules by requiring solar power developers participating in phase 2 to use Indian manufactured solar cells and modules instead of US or other imported equipment.
Our own industry, domestic industry, must be developed. So the government has taken a very right step in putting up a 50% domestic content requirement out of the 750 megawatt which they are intending to put under phase 2 batch 1. We have sound footings and we must encourage development of our own industry. We cannot go on importing these solar cells and modules for lifelong if we don't develop our own industry. And we have put in the best of machinery in the world, but our industry is not working to capacity because of the reason that there are no sufficient orders for the domestic industry.
India has now extended the domestic content requirements to more solar energy products than covered under phase 1 of the National Solar Mission. Many American and European solar power equipment makers are keen on greater market access in India, where there is a huge demand, especially since there is the prospect of a slowdown in the renewable energy industry in their home markets. Under India's Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission program, which is a part of India's National Action Plan on Climate Change, the goal is to touch 20,000 megawatt grid-connected solar power generation capacity by 2022. With this, we come to an end of this episode of Power News. Keep sending us your suggestions and views at info@indianpowernews.com or call us on 011-405-60701. I'll be back next week with more news and updates. Till then, goodbye and take care.